All right, we are live. Hello, Internet. Welcome to this, I guess, video podcast from three 49ers fans. My name is Tony Nagatani. To my, in that way, we have Justin, and then below me here, we have Aaron. We are three very long-time 49ers fans, and we just wanted to, bring you some live 49ers content. I know there's a shortage of that on the internet these days, but figure, we would go on and sort of talk story about the 49ers in a very loosely guided conversation. So, but before we get started with all that, you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Justin. I guess just a little bit of background on my 49ers story. I'm a third generation 49ers fan. So my grandfather was a big fan of Wyatt Tittle and the $1 Million Backfield. So obviously my mom, kind of growing up in the Bay, was a Joe Montana fan, kind of in her 30s and being around during that time and kind of going through the 80s. And then my dad was also a Niner fan after he married my mom, and kind of grew up watching Steve Young and Jeff Garcia and kind of the Niner heyday. So that's kind of my Niner story and kind of how I became a fan.
Very nice. Aaron, what about you?
Hi. So I'm Aaron. I am actually a journalist in real life, although I am, just to say for the record, that I am not speaking here as a journalist. Those of you who want to follow my stuff, I just keep a brief plug. Like I write about anti-Semitism, that's Israel bias. You can follow me on Twitter at Bandler's Banter, which is not on my stream, which I realize is a dumb thing. It's really dumb not to do, but that's really what I write about. I don't really cover sports unless there's an anti-Semitic incident that happens in sports, and unfortunately that has happened over the past year. Thankfully not with the Niners, and hopefully that'll never happen. But now, as far as my family has been season ticket holders for the Niners since 1998. So my childhood was largely spent going to Candlestick Park and just watching so many terrible games, in that dump of a stadium. I can remember as a kid being like, what are we doing here? Like this is terrible. And then of course, right when I got into college was when Harbaugh came, and then that's Niners were actually good, but back when I was in college, we couldn't go to as many games. But we're still season ticket holders today, and obviously, having grown up going to games and still going to games, I'm about as diehard of a fan as it gets, and so
yeah.
Here I am.
There we are. Yeah, no, so I might as well tell my 49ers origin story as well. I'm originally born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, and the nice thing about being from Hawaii is that there's no NFL team that you must root for growing up. So when you're a kid, you kind of have the pick of the litter. Now, it's interesting, though, you would think that I would have inherited one of my parents' football predilections, but my father was a huge Bears fan. And for whatever the reason, he didn't demand that I also be a Bears fan. And as a matter of fact, one day he actually went and bought me an old school 49ers 80s era jacket. The red and gold jacket. I see him all over the internet now. But I just love the colors, and it's kind of funny. I didn't really know a whole heck of a lot about football. I just knew I liked those red and gold colors, and so I had that jacket. And as a result of that, I became a 49ers fan. But I didn't really fall in love with the sport of football until maybe middle school. I was kind of just out of it doing other things, but I don't really know exactly what it was that made me fall in love with the sport. But my father used to watch games every Sunday, and one day finally I caught the bug. And since I already had that jacket, that's all there was to it. I had to be a 49er fan because, you got to be faithful until the day you die. And so, I was born, in the early 80s. So a little older than you two gentlemen, but one of the first seasons that I really followed the team religiously was that 1994 Super Bowl season. And so I really just fell in love with the West Coast offense and that mega team that we had in 1994, Steve Young, Merton Hanks, that one glorious year with Deion Sanders, Ken Norton Jr., Gary Plummer. I think we had Romanowski that year. Anyway, we had all those great players. And what was also really cool is being from Hawaii, we had the Pro Bowl every single year. And so I got to go to the Pro Bowl the week after the 49ers won the Super Bowl and see, Ricky Waters and Jerry Rice, et cetera, et cetera. And that was just a really, really unique moment. So ever since then, I really just love the team so much and consume probably way too much 49ers media. It's aside from work, it's probably the thing that I spend the most amount of time doing. And so just a couple of years ago, I was out at the bar when I lived in Sherman Oaks, California, and I met these two fine gentlemen at the bar who were as big of 49ers fans as I am, and that was something pretty unique considering we were surrounded in Los Angeles with a lot of different teams fans at an Eagles bar of all places, which is where we all met. So and just seeing just the development of all these new pieces of technology, like this video streaming service that we're using today, seeing how many people are actually having great conversations, about the 49ers and everything. I figured, I kind of wanted to get in on the conversation, but, not from a journalism point of view, because there are a lot of fake journalists out there, and there are a lot of real journalists out there too, using this exact platform to actually cover the team. But a lot of people giving their, journalistic opinions, when the fact of the matter is, a lot of us aren't journalists. In fact, we're really just really super fans. And so that's why I called up Aaron and Justin today and said, hey, you want to hop online? And so here we are today talking live about the San Francisco 49ers. So here we go. So you guys ready to talk about some 49ers?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All righty. So, we've gotten past the origin story, so let's move straight to, let's take a look at the 2020 season. So it was very disappointing overall. But Aaron, start us off. How do you feel about the 49ers 2020 season, just looking back on it now completely in the rearview mirror?
Well, unfortunately, it was a wasted year. And it's frustrating because even with all the injuries, they very easily could have been a playoff team if the quarterback position was even just halfway competent. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of those games that we lost were close, and even like almost semi-competent quarterback play gets us in the playoffs. But with Jimmy G hurt, Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard couldn't really even be halfway decent. Mm-hmm. I guess toward the end of the year, Beathard was able to make some more plays that Mullins wasn't able to, but that's not exactly a high bar. And so, outside of like watching Ayuk develop and Kinlaw develop, it did feel like a wasted year because a lot of these guys are veterans. Granted, we have kept a lot of them, thankfully. But this wasn't like a rebuilding year where young players are developing. Mm-hmm. It was a veteran team trying to get into the Super Bowl, back to the Super Bowl, and that didn't happen. So it's unfortunate, but that's sports and that's life, and I think with the way Vaezi has gone so far, I think there's plenty of reason to be optimistic for next year. For sure. Justin, with the 2020 season in the rearview mirror, what are your takeaways? How do you feel about it all?
For me personally, I somewhat agree with Aaron in the sense that I do feel like if we had a competent backup, I think that we could have made the playoffs. That being said, it's kind of hard to make the playoffs with a backup quarterback and a third string offensive line. So all things considered, I think we played as well as we could have. I certainly think that there is room for growth, as Aaron kind of alluded to, with free agency coming up.
Yeah.
And it is something to be hopeful about, and no pun intended, faithful about. But, it's something to be excited about. And so that's kind of how I look at it, I kind of look at it it's not necessarily like, I think it is kind of a washed year in the sense of all the injuries with Kittle out and, just obviously Garoppolo going down and pretty much the whole offensive line in shambles outside of Trent Williams and McGlinchey. Like that whole interior offensive line was just in shambles. And I do think that there is room for hope and room for growth.
Yeah. I agree. There's always room for hope in the NFL. Parity is very, very real. It is not an uncommon story throughout all the NFL that we'll see a team go from worst to first in any given season. My big thing about the 2020 season, just looking back on it was our second lost season in 3. Remember, we acquired Garoppolo after, that was, I believe, Kyle and John's first season in charge of the San Francisco 49ers. They acquired Jimmy Garoppolo at the very, very end of the season. He won 5 straight. Then to start off the 2018 season, after 3 games, Jimmy Garoppolo blew out his ACL, and the roster was not complete. And we had playoffs hopes that year, but from that moment on, it was a complete lost season. And so we struggled, and we watched CJ Beathard, my main man, formerly of the San Francisco 49ers.
Former Niners quarterback now.
Former Niners quarterback CJ Beathard, do his thing after Jimmy G got hurt, and then Mullins had to come in. And then we had the amazing 2019 Super Bowl run, which I think took a lot of people by surprise at just how quickly, Kyle and John were able to turn around that roster and produce, honestly, one of the greatest defenses we've seen in the last 25 years. And so even though we ended up losing to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl in 2019, which was heartbreaking, there was a whole lot of hope just because the roster was still full. And, Jimmy Garoppolo had just taken us to the Super Bowl. And despite the fact that we lost to Forrest Buckner, we still had Nick Bosa going into year 2, and we didn't know how badly Dee Ford was hurt. And so there was a lot of cause to think, hey, the 49ers team in 2019 was going to be on par, or 2020, excuse me, the 49ers team in 2020 was going to be on par with that 2019 team. But that first game, the second game, we lost to Arizona, then we went to go play the Jets, and then we lost Nick Bosa. And when that happened, that made our defense, incomplete. All of a sudden, we were looking at, similar defensive circumstances as we were looking at in that 2018 season before we drafted Nick Bosa again after a lost season. And so, and then the injuries just kept piling up and piling up and piling up. The center, Weston Richburg never came back. Then Garland got hurt, and Jimmy G got hurt, and it was never the same throughout the entire season. And it was just really unfortunate because for the second time in 3 seasons, our hopes were crushed pretty much right away. And so, it was hard to watch all that. It was hard, and just to see all that. Really last year, I thought the roster going into the season there weren't any holes and everything, but it just took Nick Bosa to make us realize exactly how far we had to go. And so, but you guys put the nail right on the head, which is the real issue was just very poor quarterback play, behind a 4th string offensive line center, and many other fill-ins. I mean, Trent Williams even had to go on the COVID list 1 week, So, looking at all that, the hottest topic of conversation on 49ers digital media has been Jimmy Garoppolo. So I'm curious. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on Jimmy G. So let's start with Justin. Justin, what do you think about Jimmy? Are you a Jimmy G fan or a Jimmy G hater?
You know what? I think, and this is just me, I think that we can do better. And the reason why I think we can do better is because there's a reason that Jimmy G doesn't throw the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. And I think it's not – I wouldn't be this hard on him if he at least did take some chances. Mm-hmm. But it just seems to me he's more of like an intermediate thrower, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But I think with the weapons that we have now, I do think that we're going to have somebody that can at least throw the ball down the field or be willing to take that chance. Mm-hmm. I think we've kind of seen him peak out. Like, I think he's the one that's going to get you – he will get you to a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But to win the game, I mean, he did have Emmanuel Sanders open and missed them. So he hits that, we're having a different conversation, right? So that's kind of my opinion on it. I think that there is room for growth, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that he is that guy.
Aaron, what about you? Jimmy G fan or Jimmy G hater?
I would consider myself a Jimmy G fan in that, like, when he plays, we win. Mm-hmm. I mean, the record. I think the records are pretty stark. It's a very much winning record with him playing. When he's not playing, it's another like 6-10, 4-12 year. Mm-hmm. I would say my main issue with Jimmy is really I think the deep ball is kind of an issue. Although I just don't think I think in that 2019 year, he just really wasn't asked to do too much, so he didn't have to because the defense was so good and the running game was so good. And he did hit on some key deep ball passes, just not the Super Bowl, which is the one everyone remembers. And, there's something to be said for not coming through in the clutch, but up to that point, he had come through up until that point, he had come through in the clutch. My main issue with Jimmy is durability. Like it's like 2 of these past 3 years have been lost seasons in large part because he's been hurt. And look, some of that can be chalked up to freak injuries, like an ACL tear. He's running to the sideline, tries to get an extra yard. The knee bends the wrong way. It's season over. And last year, the terrible offensive line results in him getting the high ankle sprain that just lingered. And high ankle sprains, they do that. They just don't go away. But even when you look back on when he was with the Patriots and he started those first couple of games and Brady was suspended, he only played 2 games out of the 4 that Brady was suspended because he had a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
So after a while, it starts to add up. And then it's like, can this guy really be counted on to year after year to give you a full season? And I think now we're at the point where we don't know for sure. And so I'm all in favor of, sure, we could do better than Jimmy G, but what realistic options are out there? And right now, outside of Deshaun Watson falling in our laps, of course, right, Deshaun Watson's in with his own legal issues right now. Jimmy's the best option we've got. Which is why the focus should be about building depth behind him. And a lot of I was hoping for a veteran backup. That's not going to happen now that Flacco's signed. Trubisky, Andy Dalton have all signed elsewhere. I think what we're looking at is maybe trading for a young quarterback with upside. There have been rumors that the Niners might go after Gardner Minshew, which I'd be good with. And then
as a backup,
as a backup, yeah. And so Minshew and Rosen could are sort of intriguing backup options with upside. But I think they have to go. They have to go and draft a quarterback. And after free agency, I don't think they have any pressing holes really, outside of maybe some depth spots in the secondary and at receiver. But they have 9 draft picks, so the capital is there to trade up and get their guy. And now it's a chance for Kyle to show that he is a quarterback guru. And I keep seeing on Twitter how a lot of people expect there to be a running quarterback within the first top 10, maybe even top 8 picks. So if they want to get their guy, draft up and get him, even if it's like Mac Jones. Do it.
Well, that's a good segue, actually, because the next topic of conversation I wanted to sort of talk about was your thoughts on, overall how the 49ers have been run for the past, going into year 5 now with Kyle and John running it together. And Jimmy G issues aside, I think they've been doing a damn good job in terms of offensive scheme. This roster, looking at what they did also in free agency, re-signing pretty much almost every single critical piece that we had that was up for that was up this year. I feel like they drafted and acquired their way into what might be another Super Bowl caliber roster. But and so I'm very satisfied and stoked as a 49ers fan to have Kyle, John, and Adam Peters, at the helm making all these decisions. But do you guys disagree, or what are your thoughts? Let's send it to Justin.
I actually think outside of drafting Solomon Thomas, I think that the Niners front office has done remarkably. And for me, I think that is something that bodes well in the future. They've done a great job of drafting. We get Fred Warner mid-rounds. We hit George Kittle mid-rounds. I mean, we have done an excellent job, and they have done an excellent job in terms of running the front office. And I do think some credit does have to go to Jed York a little bit here, because from a guy that, kind of wanted it to be all about him, he's done a good job of just letting them run the show. And he's kind of acting like a really competent owner. And I think that could not be said during the Balky years. So I think that's something that can really give us all some resemblance of hope as well. So I'm really happy with the way that things are going in the front office, from John, Hall of Famer John Lynch, which rightfully deserved,
Yeah.
to Kyle and to Adam and just the whole team, the whole brain trust there. And we have to give credit to Parag Marate. I mean, what a job he's done in terms of the cap space and just clearing cap and just working his wizardry. It's really remarkable to see. Just being able to retain everybody, it is really impressive, and you got to give credit where credit is due.
Real quick. Were you guys on Twitter the night before Kyle Juszczyk announced he was re-signing? Were you guys part of that conversation? Hashtag Kyle.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
You know, the thing I found very surprising about that was I guess John Lynch and Jed York were partying together at Jed York's 40th birthday party, but Kyle Shanahan, I don't think was. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he was at that party. Should we read anything into that Kyle might not have been partying it up with Jed and John? Aaron.
I mean, I don't know whether he was there or not. If he wasn't, no. I mean, I don't know. Like, he's.
We all got lives.
We all got lives. We still have a pandemic going on.
Yeah.
Maybe he had something on with his family. I don't know. I wouldn't read too much into it. I mean, Kyle's so valuable to the franchise, and I think we guys need to see this with Trent Williams re-signing, because it sounds like Trent Williams was very close to signing with the Chiefs, which would have been awful. Like, I don't know if I could have watched the next season if he had signed there. But basically, like, he had loyalty to Kyle Shanahan. So when he said, hey, I'm getting close here with a deal with the Chiefs, like, try and pull me away. Kyle's like, all right, like, we'll be at their offer. And so Trent Williams said, all right, I'm good.
Yeah. I tell you,
I think this goes back to the question, your question of like how well they run the team. And I think having that right there, plus all the guys coming back, Juszczyk, K1, Jaworski, Tartt, people love playing for this team, and it's in large part because of the culture that Shanahan and Lynch have, and Jed York too is going to have developed with the Niners. Like, it is a winning culture, with the injury years notwithstanding, but also like it's a friendly culture that people like to be a part of. And that's something that certainly wasn't there during the bulky years, even with the Harbaugh years. Like, you could tell, I very much dislike how the front office handled the whole Harbaugh situation.
Yeah.
I just think all those leaks were very embarrassing and created a toxic environment, and you could tell it affected the team that year too. But it sounds like Harbaugh's magic was starting to wear off a bit as it was. I mean, Harbaugh's a very colorful personality, to put it mildly. And I think it did kind of wear on the players a little bit. And I mean, like, now that he's in Michigan, he hasn't really done much. So, I mean, I'm not discounting what he did for us, but I think it's something to be said for having a coach and a front office with the personalities of Shanahan and Lynch to help create a very a fun atmosphere that players like to play for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love what they've done in terms of building a winning culture. I think they are very good at identifying talented players, although they've had a couple of misses in terms of just a couple of guys with off the field issues, or just some guys that showed out, like Solomon Thomas, better in college and projected better in the NFL than they actually turned out to be. But my only holdup with the way that Kyle runs the team is sometimes I think he can be a little bit too hard on his players. Case in point, actually, I think Jimmy, potentially, he might be being a little bit too hard on Jimmy, and watching the way that sort of Jimmy progressed this season, I kind of feel like maybe a little bit like Kyle lost faith in Jimmy, and he's sort of in Kyle's doghouse, similarly to how guys like Dante Pettis were. And one of my point there is just, at the end of the season, Kyle and Mike Shanahan flew a bunch of the players out to Cabo to, I guess, hang out at Kyle's father's, Cabo compound and have like this big vacation. And Trent Williams was there, Kyle Juszczyk was there, George Kittle was there, other players were there, but Jimmy Garoppolo was not there. And so I'm not. What I'm basically trying to say is I'm worried that Kyle Shanahan might not know how to coach the quarterback position as well as some of the other coaches in the league. I'm not saying Kyle isn't a great schemer, and he certainly has a good eye for talent and all those sorts of things. But knowing that this is a quarterback league and knowing that we have a lot of stiff competition from the quarterback position in the NFC West this year, I worry about Kyle's ability to number one, bring up a rookie, if that ends up happening this year, because he hasn't really ever developed a quarterback, in his entire tenure as an NFL head coach. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, internet comment section, but I worry about him wrecking the confidence of quarterbacks specifically. So, but he has every opportunity this year to prove me wrong on that. But other than the quarterback position, you can't argue with the decisions that this front office is, well, outside of trading DeForest Buckner, you can't really argue with the decisions that this front office has made. Which kind of brings me up to the next topic, which I want to get into, which is looking at what we've done in free agency currently. The fact we've re-signed a lot of critical players, like pretty much almost all the players who we had up as free agents are now returning, minus Kerry Hyder and Akella Weatherspoon and Kendrick Bourne. Out of that, but the core nucleus of people, including guys like DJ Jones, have now re-signed. What do you guys think about the current status of the 49ers roster? Do you think that as it stands right now, is this a potential Super Bowl roster? Justin, you start off.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you think about the fact that the core players are going to be back, not to mention Bosa's coming back, then you get Ibukam as well, who's a speed guy. And then we have to see what's going to happen with D Ford. By all accounts, it looks like he's full bore, ready to go.
He might be able to play.
He might be able to play. So if that's the case, then you get two speed guys on the other end of a power guy. And then you get a second year with Kinlaw and Armstead in the middle. I think that defensive line is going to be wreaking a whole bunch of havoc. Not to mention the best middle linebacker in football. And then you get just a whole bunch of just talent back, man. I think it's really, really exciting to see what we did in free agency. I'm really excited that we got K'Wan Williams back as well. I think that is a really big boost from the nickel spot, particularly as a blitzer. I think that's something that he's pretty good at. So I think that's just going to be really, really cool to see. So yeah, man, it's awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, me too. Aaron, what do you think about the roster?
I mean, I feel really good about where we are. I think is a Super Bowl team. It really depends on Jimmy and what they do with the quarterback position generally, and it also depends on Nick Bosa. I saw a report that apparently his ACL tear was a little bit more extensive than they had thought, but he's still on track to come back by opening day, which is, I mean, obviously the fact he's on track to recover fully is good, but the fact that it was more extensive than they thought is a little worrisome. So health permitting, it's definitely a Super Bowl team, but I need to see what they do with the quarterback position in the draft. What I will say, and this kind of goes back to how they've done generally, Shanahan and Lynch seem to learn from their mistakes. So like the 2017 draft, like outside of Kittle and DJ Jones, was terrible. Mm-hmm. And then what they do, like they hit out in the park for the most part in 2018 and 2019. And 2018, the only real mistake was Dante Pettis, and then what do? They draft Deebo Samuel.
Right.
And so after the injuries this year, what they had learned from was, hey, we need to focus more on getting players who are durable. So they bring in Alex Mack, who is as durable as it gets, and he's also tough too. Like he's played through like some fractures, and still performed at a high level. Samson Ebukam, another guy who has a history of durability. Granted, he was in a more like rotational role with the Rams, but no sense of an injury history, so that's good. Zach Kerr, who's a defensive lineman they signed earlier this week, a same sort of deal. And I wouldn't be surprised if come draft time, the players they target are players who are durable. Mm-hmm. Because look, I mean, Nick Bosa, we all love him, but he did miss most of his final year at Ohio State with a core injury. Deebo Samuel had some injuries in college, and Jalen Hurd had back issues when he was drafted, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So I think that I think but the fact that they have simply gone after players from the outside who have proven to be durable, I think shows that that for one they've learned from their mistake, and that they'll probably target players who are durable, in the upcoming draft, and that's why I'm sure we'll be back in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
hopefully, of course, but yeah.
No, totally. The way I look at this year's roster is very interesting to me. A lot of people are using the phrase "run it back," and I don't 100% agree with that, because no two teams are exactly the same from year to year. But the places where they were failing last year, they've done their best to fill in the holes and make the roster match that 2019 roster as best as they can. Now, Justin, you alluded to the fact that D Ford might be able to play this season, which if D Ford can give us just every third and long would be huge for this team. And at the same time, they went out there, Aaron, as you mentioned, and they picked up Spencer Ebukam, who is in many ways that athletic speed rusher, and that could do maybe some of the sorts of things that D Ford was able to do in 2019, although he doesn't have D Ford's get off the ball and sort of psychic ability to sort of know what the snap count is. But the thing that I'm most impressed about with this roster is, and I first of all, I did not expect them to be able to re-sign all those players. Like, if you had told me that K1 would be back, Jaquiski Tartt would be back, Verrett would be back, DJ Jones would be back, I would have said that you are absolutely, and Juszczyk would be back too. I would have said you're crazy. There's no way they'd be able to do that, but yet they did. Oh yeah, and Trent Williams is coming back as well. It really is amazing what they have done. But through free agency, re-signing their own players, they've set themselves up to be able to do whatever Kyle wants on draft day, which is critical. So we're going to learn a lot about the San Francisco 49ers, in terms of like Kyle's vision for the team on draft day, because they have no more excuses. The roster, it doesn't have any holes. The weakest position, if you ask me right now, or the most questionable position is quarterback. And so, does Kyle like Jimmy? We're going to find that out on draft day if he doesn't draft, like one of these top quarterbacks. And then going, and also I'm actually really hoping, where the Niners are drafting right now at 12, that they're going to be able to draft down or move down in the draft and acquire some even more picks, because this is a good year to acquire depth, because they signed a lot of these guys to 1-year contracts. And so, I know the cap is going to inflate a lot going into next season. So we might be able to bring a lot of those guys back on longer term deals, but we need to be looking at this year to get guys who can fill in should we find ourselves unable to re-sign your Jaquiski Tartts and your K1 Williams past next season. So, but this roster, the weakest position to me, the biggest question mark is what's going to happen at quarterback. But that offensive line is better, in my opinion, than 2019's offensive line was. I think our running back room is better,
here's a thing, Tony, that I think is really, really interesting. We talk about Alex Mack. Alex Mack knows Kyle Shanahan's system. Mm-hmm. Alex Mack played under Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. It's a complicated blocking scheme within Kyle Shanahan's system. In the center, 9 times out of 10, Tony, this, they're making the calls at the line.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're telling the guard, they're telling the tackles 9 times out of 10 what the blocking scheme is, what protection they're in. If the quarterback doesn't see something, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the center's job. Alex Mack is a smart guy. Yeah. He's arguably a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So I think you have 2 Hall of Famers on your line.
Yeah,
I think there is 0 excuses now for Jimmy Garoppolo.
No.
If Garoppolo is that guy.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll know that by week 8 this season whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo is the guy. And you know what? Because of Parag's the way that the Parag has structured the contract, if we have to move off of Jimmy mid-season, going off after next year, it's not going to hurt us at all to move off of Jimmy. But this is the make or break year for Jimmy. All right, we have one big question mark defensively to talk about, and that is the fact that we lost Robert Saleh to becoming the head coach of the New York Jets. And so DeMeco Ryans is now going to be the new defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, he, of course, was an All-Pro. I believe he made All-Pro as a linebacker, as a player in the NFL. And by all accounts, he is kind of a coaching phenom because, he's a very young defensive coordinator. I have heard some things about him being aggressive and liking to blitz, which is exciting because K1 Williams is coming back, and he was probably, in my opinion, the best blitzing safety in the league last year, knowing exactly when to dial up that nickel blitz. But what? Let's start with Aaron. What do you know about DeMeco? Are you what do you think about him, and what are your expectations for DeMeco Ryans next year, Aaron?
Well, from what I understand, it sounds like all year they had kind of were preparing for the fact that Saleh was going to be leaving for a head coaching job. So they have been grooming DeMeco Ryans for quite some time. And I think the fact that they immediately promoted him after Saleh was hired by the Jets just goes to show how much faith they have in him. Like they didn't bring in they didn't bring in Dan Quinn or Raheem Morris or anyone else to interview for the position. That they just said, okay, the Saleh's gone, and now it's your turn, DeMeco. And I think that goes to show how Kyle Shanahan isn't just good at developing players, but good at developing coaches too. And the fact that we brought all these defensive players back, and the fact that Robert Saleh hasn't been able to poach anyone outside of Tevin Coleman, just goes to show how I think the players believe in DeMeco, and I'm sure DeMeco will pick up right where Saleh left off.
Exciting. Justin, what do you think about DeMeco?
Yeah, I'm super excited about DeMeco. For me personally, I think the fact that he's aggressive, he was an All-Pro as a linebacker when he was with the Texans. He definitely knows defense. And like Aaron was saying, the Niners were prepared for this. Mm-hmm. They knew that they weren't going to be able to hold on to Saleh. Many of us were thinking that Saleh might be picked up as a head coach last year.
Right.
So the fact that we were able to hold on to him for an extra year, given the injury concerns obviously this year and what happened, he was still able to put together a respectable defense. Now I'm excited about DeMeco Ryans being a little bit more aggressive. I would imagine that we're going to be playing a lot more man-to-man on the outside with DeMeco Ryans versus what we were doing with Saleh, which leads me to believe that we might potentially see early secondary. Mm-hmm. And in particular, corners that are adverse in man-to-man coverage. I think that is a possibility. So I'm really excited about it, and I definitely want to see a little bit more aggressiveness, particularly when you think about blitzing for the middle linebacker spot, because I think that's one of the most underrated skills with Fred Warner. We all kind of marvel at his ability to cover tight ends and coverage ability. We don't talk enough about his ability to time up a blitz, because there were countless times last year where I was just like, oh, wow. Like he came in and just like timed it perfectly. So I think, that's something that's really, really exciting. So I think that's something to look out for.
Yeah. I would just add that DeMeco Ryans, obviously he was the linebackers coach before when promoted, and linebacker is arguably the deepest position on the roster with Warner, Greenlaw. Al-Shaair made strides last year. We also got Demetrius Flanagan, Foles, or whatever his name is. And so clearly DeMeco Ryans has shown that he can develop linebackers at a high level. Yeah. So the promotion is definitely well deserved.
I was going to make that exact same point, and some food for thought for you. At 12, if Micah Parsons is there at 12, I don't know. They say he's an edge rushing linebacker, but he could be a fun thought to add to DeMeco's arsenal of guys. All right, let's switch from defense and let's start talking about some offense. Of course, the major domo of the San Francisco 49ers is Kyle Shanahan, an offensive-minded head coach. He was the best offensive coordinator in the league before he was the head coach of the 49ers. And dare I say, he's the best play designer, and I think he's the best play caller. Personally, this is what I believe as a fan, that he is the best play caller in the league as it stands today. What are your expectations for Kyle Shanahan going into this, his fifth year calling the plays for the 49ers, building this offense? Let's go back to Aaron. What do you think?
Well, I think that provided firstly, now that he has a center is huge. Having Alex Mack, who is durable and knows the system well, is going to make life so much easier for Kyle and for the quarterback, whether it's Jimmy or whomever else. And I'm sure that whoever it is, it'll be the guy Kyle wants, and they will probably be able to execute his offense better. So I expect his offense to perform at a high level. And I think we're going to see a lot more action from Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, provided they're all healthy, hopefully. In Mostert too. I think it's going to be an explosive offense, health permitting.
Justin, what about you? What do you think? How's Kyle Shanahan doing? What are your expectations for Kyle Shanahan?
Yeah, I think we're going to be a top 10 scoring offense next year. I wholeheartedly do. I think the one thing that we could not do, and I think Kyle wanted to do, but I'm hoping we see less of, is him trying to be cute. I think like that's something that I don't think needs to be done.
So wait.
Right?
What you're saying is more Wildcat plays.
Totally saying more Wildcat plays. Yeah.
James out of the Wildcat.
Yeah. You know, shotgun Wildcat. Let's do it. No, I think because he doesn't need to. He's such a smart guy. He's such a great play caller. Tony, you hit the nail on the head. He's the best play caller in the league. I don't think he needs to be cute in order to garner 6 yards or 7 yards with the amount of talent that we have. And Aaron brought up a very astute point. Now we've got a center, you know, where we don't need to do those types of things. Now the shovel passes, I don't call that cute, but I think when you're running like 10 reverses, like I think that's not necessarily something that's going to bode well all the time.
Yeah, a lot of jet sweeps. Well, you know, here's my outlook on Kyle Shanahan is they really have no excuse because Brandon Ayuk, right, Debo Samuel, George Kittle, they brought back Kyle Juszczyk. They got Mostert, who's gonna be the I guess the primary runner with Jeff Wilson Jr. in there a lot. You know, Richie James is right now. I think he should be our slot receiver with Kendrick Bourne not there. We don't know what we have yet in the potential Jalen Hurd, although I'm not expecting very, very much. Anything we get out of him is gravy. But there are playmakers on this offense. And the fact of the matter is everybody was beat up last season. Like we had Hronis Grasu playing center last season, which didn't help Jimmy G stay healthy at all because I believe it was Hronis Grasu who gave up the sack to Bobby Wagner where Jimmy rolled his ankle the second time and re-injured that high ankle sprain. And so, you know, the Kyle needs to stay out of his own way, and he just needs to use the weapons that they've acquired. And another exciting thing, they could get better with this draft on offense. Either potentially, is there a quarterback upgrade? I don't know. But a guy like, you know, PFF, I remember had Kyle Pitts mocked at 12. How crazy would that be if we got a playmaker like that? Or looking at the place where the 49ers are drafting, they could very well end up with one of the top 3 wide receivers in this draft as well. And so, you know, it's simply, I mean, Kyle just needs to stay out of his own way. Justin, you hit the nail right on the head there. That Wildcat play was atrocious, and he was dialing up so much to protect Jimmy. Fact of the matter is, though, Kyle dialing up random 2-yard, shovel passes was good enough to beat the number 1 ranked defense in Los Angeles Rams last year. So he knows what he is doing, and it's just a matter of he needs to take that game to the next level. Find his groove and just really stop being cute. You're right. Stop being cute,
right,
and stay.
But I wonder. But Tony, you kind of touched on this earlier. I wonder if that is just to protect Jimmy because he really doesn't trust Jimmy.
Yeah.
And I think, that's kind of leading me to believe, well, we might go quarterback early in the draft, to be honest with you. Like, it wouldn't shock me.
Okay. Well, let's get into this draft and this quarterback conversation. I know a lot of people in 49ers land we're talking a lot about it. This is a top-heavy year for quarterbacks simply because COVID cut the season short, and we don't have a lot of game film most recently to watch a lot of these guys. And so the safe bet is draft a quarterback early because that's just what people are thinking that they should do in the modern NFL these days. But okay, is there a quarterback in the draft right now that you think is an improvement that could be a week 1 starter? Aaron, what do you think?
I don't know about week 1 starter. I mean, I don't think any quarterback that's a rookie is going to be week 1 starter in Shanahan's offense because his offense is too complicated. I mean, took Matt Ryan a year to really get it before he went off and has MVP year under Shanahan. So there's no quarterback in general is going to be that's a rookie is going to be a week 1 starter under Shanahan's offense. Now, which quarterback I think is the perfect fit long term? I would say probably Justin Fields. Just cannon arm. He's mobile. I think he's a quarterback that Shanahan can really do a lot with. That's what I'm hoping for. How likely is it? I don't know. I mean, right. It really depends on what the Jets do at number 2.
Right. Right.
So I don't know, but I'm hoping for Justin Fields. I could also maybe see them going for Mac Jones, which I've recently become, we're pretty okay with. Like I think that's the potential there to be like a better version of Kirk Cousins. And Shanahan loves Kirk Cousins. And so I know Chris Sims has apparently been hyping Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
He seems like he could be decent. That's notable because Chris Sims and Kyle Shanahan are buddies.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something to that. Although if Shanahan likes Kellen Mond, I wouldn't want to get him until like day 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
But since we've had the dream offseason so far, why not think big?
Right. Right.
Let's go get Justin Fields in the draft if we can.
I hear you, Justin. I know we talked a lot about quarterbacks while the Niners were still playing in 2020 after the offensive line got Jimmy hurt. So what do you think? Is there a quarterback that you like in this draft?
The more that I've watched him, I do agree with Aaron. Justin Fields would probably be the guy. Now, I disagree with Aaron in the fact that I do think that Justin Fields could be a day 1 starter. Here's the reason why. Aaron kind of brought up the point that it took, it's going to take a while in order to gain the complexity of Kyle Shanahan's office. Well, within that same 5-game span, Jimmy Garoppolo came in as a free agent and picked it up pretty quickly. So if you're scheming people open, right, and you have players there to help you, then I think that you're going to be just fine. And if by all accounts, he's a smart guy. So I think if he's a smart guy, understands the concepts and understands, the route tree, I think he could be fine week 1. And we're seeing that now more than ever, where rookies are coming in and they're just letting it up because they understand the route tree. They've got the offseason to go through a playbook. I do think that is kind of like trial by fire, and I do think that you can have a lot of success, particularly when you think about us as a running team. The quarterback isn't going to be asked to do too much when we kind of want to run the ball first.
Right.
We're not a pass first team, but we're kind of more of a run the ball first type team. So I do think that there is something to be said about that. So I would go Justin Fields.
I would just say that I think that 5-game stretch with Jimmy, I seem to recall reading that Shanahan did kind of dial back the playbook a little bit to make things easier for Jimmy during those 5 games. So I mean, certainly he could do that with the rookie quarterback too. I mean, he did that for RG3 in Washington. But if he wants to unleash his full arsenal of plays, then the quarterback won't be ready week 1. Whether it's Justin Fields or whomever else. So, but yeah, I mean, yes. If there is any team for rookie quarterback to come into and be well positioned, it would be the Niners. So, it really just depends on who Shanahan likes as his guy. And we can speculate till the cows come home, but only Shanahan knows. So,
yep. So here, I've been thinking about this a lot. I wrote a piece for my own personal blog a few weeks ago about how the 49ers should trade up and take Justin Fields. And I'm largely, I think Justin Fields is also the guy. He's fast, he's tall, he's got the cannon arm. But the thing of Justin Fields too, and Aaron, I will agree with you because I don't think Justin Fields is going to be ready to start in the NFL week 1. Now, week 10, on the other hand, or week 11, I think he might be able to be there. But this got me sort of thinking that, so it looks to me as if the current plan the Niners have is if they can't acquire Deshaun Watson, is to bring back Jimmy Garoppolo and have Jimmy Garoppolo be the starter. So I don't think that Justin Fields is going to be there at 12. Now, and I think to trade up to get Justin Fields, you're going to have to get to pick number 3 or pick number 4 to get to him, because I don't think he's getting past Atlanta, and certainly not getting past Carolina at number 7. But because the plan seems to me to be to start with Jimmy, it would make sense to draft a physical phenom who needs to sit for a little bit. And so I'm kind of coming around to the idea of, if we're going to run it back with Jimmy this year, we should draft Trey Lance and have Trey Lance be that number 2 guy, get him comfortable under center, get him, completely indoctrinated into Kyle's offense, which I'm told from people who are smarter than I am about football is similar to the North Dakota State offense that they run up there. But from what I've heard, that cannon is just ridiculous on Lance, and he's the best running quarterback in this draft. And if he can get his accuracy together and put together, and he's young and he's barely played any games, but if the idea is to, have Jimmy be the starter to begin the season at least, and Trey Lance is there when the 49ers draft, heck, if the Niners can get trade with Detroit, and get ahead of Carolina, I think Trey Lance might actually end up being the guy to look at, knowing that he has to sit. So, but do you guys what do you guys think about that?
I can get behind it. I've read similar stuff about Trey Lance, and I think that he's got. I think his best comparison would be Josh Allen, because Josh Allen did take a couple of years before he's arguably now a top 5 quarterback now, maybe the best after Mahomes.
Yep.
But it took time.
Yeah.
And so I think Trey Lance can get there with time. So yeah, I mean I can certainly see the logic behind just waiting at 12 and grabbing Lance if he's there and letting him develop behind Jimmy for a year or two. I'm not opposed. It really just depends on how sold Kyle is on Lance versus anybody else. Because if Kyle thinks Justin Fields is his guy, then he should do whatever it takes to get him.
Totally.
But if he doesn't, and if he's okay with Trey Lance falling to him, then he should be fine with that too. I don't know. I mean, I can't get inside Kyle Shanahan's head, so I don't know. Given Justin Fields' potential, I'm more on board with just trading up to get him.
Okay.
Because what the thing is that Super Bowl windows can close very quickly in the NFL. It's just you blink, all of a sudden it's just well, damn it, it's gone.
Yeah.
Just because of injuries and the caps and salary cap. It's tough. So, if your guy is there, do what it takes to get him.
All right, let me pivot away from the quarterback position. During this segment, I really wanted to talk a lot more about overall draft crushes. So aside from the quarterback position, which is the most glaring sort of long-term need for the 49ers, do you guys have other draft crushes out there outside of the quarterback position? I'll start with Justin. Go ahead.
Yeah, so outside of Trey Lance, and by the way, I do agree with your idea of having Trey Lance because he's got a bazooka of an arm. Yeah. So I think it's kind of Mahomes-esque in terms of the arm. It's up there. In terms of draft crushes outside of the quarterback position, I would say somebody like a J.C. Horn, or if we could get a Surtain, or if I know we got fairly mock to us in a couple of them, but it depends on that back. If that back is okay and he's cleared and he's going to make 100% recovery, maybe we go that route. Now, Aaron did bring up a very astute point of we're now kind of focusing on players that don't have injury concerns, which would lead me to believe that if J.C. Horn and Fairley are there on the board at 12, well, we might want to go with Horn because he doesn't have the injury concerns that Fairley had. Furthermore, one of the knocks on Horn is that he might run slow. Mm-hmm. He might run into the 4.5s. Well, he ran in, I believe, a 4.4 today at his pro day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that could potentially be a route that we can go, or we can take interior O-line. Now, I guess, I think that's another route that we could potentially go. And let's say somebody like a Rashawn Slater falls. Well, if we can have Rashawn Slater plugged in next to McGlinchey on the right side, next to Alex Mack and have Alex Mack kind of be the tutor, I think that and the guy's a mauler, so I think he kind of fits in with what we would want to do. I think that would be a very good route as well. I think we're in the position at 12 if we don't trade up for a quarterback, right? If like Kyle Shanahan is sold on the fact that we're just going to ride with Jimmy, we are in the position to take the best player available. And I think that is a very good luxury to be in. And there's even a potential. Don't think about this as don't rule it out. We could potentially trade down too.
Yeah,
that wouldn't surprise me either.
So we could potentially trade down too. So I think that there is that possibility as well. But
Gotcha.
I'm definitely thinking we're in a place where we can, if we can't trade down, I definitely think we're in the position to take best player available.
Ooh, can you imagine if we could get to Rashawn Slater, though? I'm just thinking about this. Trent Williams and then Tomlinson, Mack, Rashawn Slater starting at right guard, and then
it would, in my opinion, it would be something like what the Cowboys had.
Yeah.
That offensive line, let's just be honest, and we're obviously Zeke's offensive line, or even we're going to say this, we're going to call it what it is. That offensive line made Troy Aikman a Hall of Famer. Now, I got a lot of respect for Troy, but I think that offensive line, truthfully, was the reason why Troy Aikman was in the Hall of Fame, if you think about it.
Very, very true. All right. Aaron, what do you think? Like non-quarterback draft crushes, or comment on anything about Justin, just because I love all these ideas.
I think the guys Justin brought up are all good. I would just add about Slater is that he could also potentially take over for McGlinchey if we don't resign him, which is a possibility, given that he had kind of a down year last year. I think he'll be better. But I mean, the Irish make cap decisions, so maybe McGlinchey's a cap casualty. I don't know. But I would just add, I mean, Kwity Paye, the defensive end from Michigan, looks like a total baller. Like, he's a speed guy. I mean, having him alongside Ebukam, Bosa, and if Ford, if he's healthy, will make for a pretty nasty pass rushing rotation.
Amazing.
And I mean, I saw one mock draft where we got Devontae Smith. Which would be crazy, Devontae Smith alongside Ayuk and Debo, like, oh my god,
that's like you guys remember that year the Vikings had Randy Moss, Chris Carter, and Jake Reed, all three of those guys just at the same time. That would be like that kind of a wide receiving core if they were to be able to get Devontae. Oh man, that'd be amazing. Does Devontae play? Amazing. Who plays slot in that scenario?
I think Devontae would play this.
It probably would be Devontae, but I think Kyle would find ways to switch it up.
Yeah.
With this, I mean, Kyle would have so much fun with Devontae Smith or Kyle Pitts too.
Yeah.
But I think Justin's right that at 12 we can take best player available, and we're in a position with the roster, even with the quarterback questions, where the Niners can really be choosy. And they don't have to be desperate. They can just kind of sit back, let the draft board play out. Again, it just depends on if there is a guy that Shanahan says, like, that's our guy. I want him. Let's get him. Otherwise, just sit back and let the board play out. And trade back if you can. Like, there's something to be said for getting more depth with all these players on 1-year deals. So. I think there are a lot of different routes and options we can take in the draft, and I'm sure that Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch will navigate it appropriately.
Well, let me tell you guys my draft crush, and that is, so I in middle school, which was the last time I played football, I was terrible at it. I played the center position. And so I always like guys like Jesse Sapolu and, like Jeremy Newberry back in the day. So I always have a thing for centers. And so I'm overjoyed at the fact that we were able to bring in Alex Mack, who I think is a clear upgrade over both Richburg and Garland, despite the fact that he's almost my age. So all that being said, though, Alex Mack is 36. He's entering age 36 season. And so looking past all that and also understanding the fact that center is a position that sometimes takes some time to master, I started looking at the centers, and we have injury issues with the guy who might be the best center in the draft, which is Landon Dickerson. But I started doing some reading, some listening to some podcasts of, again, people who are smarter than I am. And they turned me on to this guy named Drew Dahlman, who is the center from Stanford. He's a smart guy from Stanford, has the body of a center. And best part about it is his father was former 49ers offensive lineman, Chris Dahlman, who played in the 1990s. And so I would like the 49ers in the 7th round to draft Drew Dahlman out of Stanford. Let him develop behind Alex Mack for a few years. And then when Alex Mack is ready to retire, we would then shift him in there and continue that idea of having, although I don't know how, because Dahlman went to Stanford and, Alex Mack went to Cal. So I don't know how that's going to play out. But other than that, I think it'd be a good thing. So my crush is a 7th round draft pick, hopefully, in Drew Dahlman. All right, 2 more segments before we go on here. We've talked free agency, we've talked draft, we've talked D'Amico Ryans, Kyle Shanahan, just reflections upon the 2020 season. So looking all the way back as we just have, let's look forward to the 2021 season. It might be a bit early because we don't have draft picks right now, but do you guys have a record prediction, understanding that we have 17 games on the schedule going in to 2021? So what's your dream record or what are your record fantasies? Like, what do you think? Like what's our record going to be?
I would say 14-3 or 13-4. I'm gonna go right there. I think that the split that I could see is the Rams.
Okay.
I definitely think we could split the Rams, and I think the Arizona series, I think we could split.
Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea how this new 17-game season is going to play out. I don't like it, honestly.
Okay.
I don't like the new format, but
why is that? What don't you like about it? Just curious.
Well, because I mean, you then have an extra. Well, I don't know if they're going to put in that rule where like a player has to sit a game, which creates all kinds. Which firstly, from a fantasy football perspective, that's going to be a total nightmare. But also just from a coaching perspective, it's like you have to set your quarterback like in one game like that. I don't know. I don't like it. I think that they should have, and I mean, it also increases the injury risk too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as much as we hated the extra preseason game or two, like, if the starters weren't going to play, then there's no injury risk. So, so that being said, yeah, I mean, if they're 13-4 would probably make sense. Maybe 12-5. I mean, the NFC West is going to be a bloodbath this year, even more so than it normally is, because the opponents have the Cardinals have gone better on paper, although I'm not really sold on Cliff Kingsbury and J.J. Watt's getting up there in age and has had some injury issues. The Rams lost. The Rams obviously got better with Stafford, but they've lost a lot of guys on that defense because of the salary cap. So, and of course, the Seahawks still can't get Russell Wilson anyone to block for him. So, and they gave much money to Chris Carson too, which I don't know why you would pay much money for running back in this day and age, but it's still gonna be a tough division. So that's why I might lean a little more towards like 12-5, but 13-4 is certainly within possibility too.
Gotcha.
It really just depends on health, really.
Mm-hmm. No, I everything depends upon health, because on any NFL team is one impact injury away from being mediocre at best. So but you know what, the way I look at it is we have had the worst injury luck over the last, I feel like 20 years. That the 49ers have. So I think we're kind of due for some good injury luck.
I'm still having nightmares about Jerry Rice blowing out his knee on the reverse.
Oh man, Warren Sapp blowing out the knee.
Yeah.
Navarro Bowman's knee injury in the championship game. That's what gives me PTSD. Like the way that knee bends, just oh my god. It's even more heart wrenching when you think about that. He sacrificed his knee to try and get the rest of the ball out of Jermaine Kearse's hand.
Yep.
And he did.
And then it was overturned.
And it was over. Yeah. Well, no, they got the call wrong. They got the call wrong on the field, and they couldn't overturn it. And of course, the next place was turnover on downs. But, but still, I mean, it was just from there. It was just downhill for Bowman, just because he was starting to find his way back after the injury, and then he tears his Achilles. And I was actually out that game where he tore it. And it's just he was never the same because two major leg injuries like that is just hard to come back from. So, but anyway, yeah, it's like let's just hope that we don't have that happen to anyone currently on our team.
Wish for health. All right, I have us going 13-4. I have us splitting with both the Seahawks and the Rams, even though I think the Seahawks, it's just going to be one game losing to some Russell Wilson magic because that's just what that guy does. I have us losing to the Vikings and also to the Colts next season. And I have us beating the Packers. And so looking at that, we're sweeping. We're gonna beat Tennessee. We're gonna sweep the Cardinals. And we're definitely going to beat up on the NFC East, who we play. The NFC East. I'm sorry. Who do we play next year? The NFC North. We're going to beat up on the NFC North next year. We're going to beat the Packers. And I say we're going to go 13-4, and I think that's going to be enough to win the NFC West next year behind this roster with very, very few holes in it now. So, all right, let's move on to some just some final thoughts, gentlemen, and then we've been going for a little bit over an hour. So.
You had me nervous when you were saying the NFC East because I was thinking we're going to have to go back to the Meadowlands again.
No. We play at the Eagles, or we play the Eagles, I think. But anyway, doesn't matter. We're going to beat the Eagles. But final thoughts. Aaron, what are your final thoughts looking ahead to the 2021 season for the 49ers?
Well, I mean, we have had the dream offseason so far. We've brought so many players back that we didn't think would be possible. And all the new guys we've gotten have shown to be good, durable players who fit holes, who fit needs. And have helped our depth. So and Niners aren't done. I'm sure they're going to make a trade for Minshew or some other quarterback, and I'm sure they'll make moves in the draft. So I'm excited. I think there's a good chance to make it back to the Super Bowl next year, and this time win it. I mean, as we said, it all depends on health, mainly Nick Bosa and Jimmy Garoppolo. If they can come back and regain the 2019 forms, I think we're in good shape.
Justin?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like Aaron said, I think if everybody's healthy, all hands are on deck. I definitely think we make a run at the Super Bowl and win it this year. I also think that we're talking about obviously draft steals. I think if you take a flyer on somebody like an Etienne from Clemson, if he's there at the end of the first round, maybe you kind of jump back up and get somebody like that. Because I think in Shanahan's offense, I think that he would be just a monster. He would be kind of like an Alvin Kamara in Shanahan's offense. So I think that would be good. But yeah, I think to Aaron's point, I just think if everybody's healthy, all hands are on deck. Another year. And I'm really excited about what the Niners are doing, and they have had the perfect storm from a free agency standpoint, from an offseason standpoint. They've done a really, really good job, and I think obviously maybe Jimmy's going to maybe have a redemption year. We'll see, but in the end of the day, it's up to Shanahan, and we got to trust that Shanahan, Peters, John Lynch, they know what they're doing, and we got to have faith in it. So I'm excited about it, and I can't wait, man. Yeah. Season can't come soon enough.
I know. So many, many months of the draft away. And so my final thought is that, it's really, really good to talk about the 49ers at length with two very, very good friends who are equally as knowledgeable about the 49ers as I am and have the passion to just talk about the team. And so this has really been a true blessing to talk to you two guys today. And my final thought is this: we should keep doing this over the course of this offseason, continue to have these conversations. And, we should come back and talk about the draft. We should come back and talk about mini camps. Hopefully we're going to get some mini camps. And, and all that good stuff going forward. And we should just keep on talking. So does that sound good to you guys?
Sounds good.
Yeah. And hopefully we can go see games in person this year.
That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. If Santa Clara County lets people see games, we gotta go see some games. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
All Alrighty, you guys, thank you so much for joining me on my various YouTube channel and my Facebook Live to just talk about the 49ers. Hopefully all the folks who are going to be watching this on repeat will have fun, just as much fun as we did talking it out. So, but yeah, check out our social media handles. They are right there underneath all of our names. And you can always check out my blog, which is sinecosineTangent.com. I'll be putting up some more stuff over the course of the next few weeks. But all in all, just thank you very, very much for watching. Go Niners. Can't wait to talk some more. Take care, everybody.